So let's call the meeting to order. The clock on the wall says 10:10. Is that close enough?
It's 10:07.
10:07. There are no public attendees, and let's take the roll. Let's start with Commissioner Coppola, please.
Commissioner Parole here.
Commissioner W. Williams here.
Commissioner Alan Alexander.
Terry Tracy, Council Parole.
Commissioner Christina Hernandez.
Tina Stanford, Chairwoman.
Tony Nucci, Dax, Acting Commissioner.
Commissioner Hallidan, present.
James Ferguson.
Commissioner Joe Crano, present.
And from DOC staff and Board of Parole staff are? Okay. And excused absent are Commissioner Elovich, Commissioner Sharkey, Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Julie Smith, and Commissioner Ludlow. Thank you. At this point, I want to welcome a guest we have for today's meeting, Acting Commissioner Anthony J. Annucci for the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. I would like to give him an opportunity to introduce himself to those of you who don't know him and his extensive background in state service, and then give us an opportunity to introduce ourselves. Even if he's met us before, he may not know our backgrounds, so I'd like to go around the table, and again, we'll start with Commissioner Coppola doing that after Commissioner Annucci's remarks and introduction.
Okay. Good morning to everyone. It is a pleasure for me to be here, and I thank the chairwoman for this opportunity to attend your business meeting and address you and tell you a little bit about A, my background, and B, where the agency as a whole is going in the changing landscape in criminal justice. I am now in my 30th year with this agency. I started in 1984 as deputy counsel. I did that for about 4 years. I became deputy commissioner and counsel in 1989. I did that for about 17 years. I was probably, I think, the second or third most experienced corrections counsel in the country at the time. And then when Brian Fisher came in, he asked me to become executive deputy commissioner. I kept saying, no, I want to go for the world record as counsel. But he finally succeeded in convincing me to become executive deputy commissioner. And then May 1st of 2013, I became acting commissioner. And every day I learned something new about this incredible agency and all the different moving parts, all of the work that we all do to help keep the public safe, to try and allow the offenders that are committed to our custody and supervision to become better individuals, save the taxpayers money in the process, but more importantly, prevent future victimization. I think there's a lot of things that this agency can do in that regard, which I'll get to in a moment. Prior to becoming deputy counsel in 1984, I had spent 4 years after law school as with an acting Supreme Court judge in Brooklyn as the law assistant. That's the role where you're kind of like the counsel to the judge. And that gave me a very valuable learning experience because I learned how trials actually work. I learned the procedures of the criminal procedure law, sentencing requirements, etc., taking down sentencing minutes and plea negotiations. So that gave me a very good background and positioned me nicely for my new role with this agency. And of all the different responsibilities I have performed, I think one of the things I am most proud of, and that experience helped me, is all of the different legislation that I was able to draft. 5 different governors of the state have signed into law legislation that I've written, a lot of it affecting sentence length, such as the SHOC program, KSAT, maritime, supplemental maritime, most recently the limited credit time allowance. I know a lot of you had to understand all of that and what it means for the different offenders. In my 30 years with this agency, I can perhaps divide my career into 2 parts. The first part dealt with trying to deal with the increasing need to continue to expand the prison system, to construct new prisons, to expand existing capacity. The law requires us to accept state-ready inmates within a certain prescribed period of time. When I was counsel, and Terry Tracy still is in his role as counsel to the board now, he and I worked together defending a lot of litigation. We as a state had to spend millions of dollars just in contempt fines because we had sheer big numbers backing up at the county levels, and we didn't have the space to accept them into custody, and it wasn't a legal defense that we didn't have the capacity, that the legislature may not have given us everything we've needed to help build capacity. But that also presented opportunities to craft comprehensive legislation that would ultimately be a compromise for both the Senate and the Assembly to, A, build more prisons, but also do alternatives such as the shock program, where you can have an inmate getting released after 6 months, shaving as much as 30 months off his sentence, merit time with the 1/6 reduction on the indeterminate sentences and the 1/7 on the drug offenses, the Willard Drug Treatment Program, the first alternative to second felony offender sentencing, limited credit time, a number of other things. So, again, the first half of my career was trying to deal with the sheer demand for huge new prison capacity. And the landscape has changed so much in New York State. We're considered the miracle state because the prison population, and this is a good thing, has been significantly reduced. And we've actually been able to close a lot of prisons. Under this governor, we have now officially closed 13 different prisons. The biggest change has been in the number of drug offenders who are committed to state prison. In 1996, I think we had something like 24,000 drug offenders in prison at the end of that calendar year. Today, we have under 7,000, maybe 6,700. So that has dramatically changed. And with it went a lot of associated problems. We had a terrible problem in the state with the crack epidemic. Fueled a lot of violence, a tremendous amount of violence, fueled a lot of health problems associated with it, the rise in AIDS, the rise in hepatitis C, etc. That has waned significantly. That is a big reason why we are a much safer state now, as well as many other reasons. And I think researchers and criminologists will continue to debate for years exactly what has driven the New York success story. But we are the safest large state in the country right now. I think we are the fourth or third safest state overall, and that's pretty remarkable when you consider some of the very small states where the populations are so reduced and crime is so low that we have achieved what we've achieved. So the population has been significantly reduced. I see it as stabilizing now, at least for the immediate future. I don't see us as closing any more prisons anytime soon, which is at least good in the sense that it can allow us to concentrate on other things. We have so many different populations, as you know, that fit the bill of special needs. The sheer number of mentally ill inmates that are in our system, the number with developmental disabilities, the number with academic challenges, the elderly inmates that pose their challenges, the young inmates that we still continue to get. The governor has commissioned a body of individuals to look at raising the age, and I believe we will end up in this state with a new age at which criminal responsibility will start. I think that will be the end result. I think the legislature will change the law. But exactly what format it will take, I believe we'll probably still have the juvenile offender law. They will probably extend the crimes to 16 and 17-year-olds. They may add some new crimes. Where they'll be housed, whether they go to OCFS, whether they continue to come to us, will be a challenge. But I think this commission will also look at the 18 to 24-year-old cohort that we have, what kind of programs do we have for them, what works best for them, et cetera, et cetera. We're all about trying to reduce recidivism, among other things. We have a stubborn number. It hovers around 40%. On the good news side, only 11% come back for new crimes, 29% come back as technical parole violators. I think there's a lot more we can do to try and cut into that number. Tom Herzog, our Deputy Commissioner for Community Supervision, has some good ideas that we think will make sense. We know what the evidence tells us. We know interventions are important, but not so much the length of the sanction, but just the swiftness and the certainty of it. And there's some creative things that we can do in that regard. We know that reentry in general is also a very big issue. It's, in fact, a fundamental purpose of our penal law. The legislature changed that a few years ago to say, among other things, the purpose of the penal law is to provide for the successful reentry into the community of those who are committed to state prison. There's a reentry council that's looking at a whole host of things, looking at the barriers to successful reentry, employment, discrimination, housing, access to services, drug treatment, and I look forward to their report and working with them. So I think New York has so many moving parts in the criminal justice arena, and it's an exciting time, and I think it's a fulfilling time for all of us. I often say that this agency, as big and as diverse as we are like a large family. Every single person has an important role to play, and I very much appreciate everything that everyone does, from the line officer in our institutions to the parole officer in the community, the reentry specialists, the doctors and the nurses that treat our offenders, and all the challenges we face. If there's any single frustration that's big to me, it's the fact that so many people on the outside don't really know or understand all the challenges that we face. And it is a complex job we do. And I certainly appreciate the job that the parole board does. It's not an easy job. It's a very difficult job. And the merger legislation, I think, moved the state in a positive direction in that regard. My big job is to make sure you have all the tools that you need to do your job, that you have all the information that you need. Little things like getting the information you need sometimes is complicated. For example, and Terry Tracy and I go back years on this issue, just making sure that we get the sentencing minutes is a challenge. Because, as you know, when an inmate is delivered to state prison, he comes with the commitment, he comes with the pre-sentence report, and we get a criminal history record. The sentencing minutes don't arrive with the inmate. There's a legal requirement that they get separately transcribed and then get mailed to us. So it is sometimes a challenge to look in the file and say, hey, we never got the minutes. And one of the things that we did, because the courts used to just put the indictment number on the cover, and if you had a common name like Jose Santiago out of the Bronx, an indictment number, and we have 25 Jose Santiagos in the system, and all of them are committed by the Bronx, it was a challenge just to get those minutes into the right file. So one of the protocols we worked out with OCA is making sure the stenographers know enough to put the NYS number on the sentencing minutes. Because whatever the judge says at the time of sentence is important, it is relevant, it is information you should have. So it is my ongoing mission to make sure that those kinds of things are taken care of, that you have all of the information that you need, everything that's happened while the individual has been incarcerated. And I know that Tina comes to periodically to our executive staff meetings, and I hear directly, and my entire staff hear directly from her how things are going, where we need to increase things, whether it's with translation services or how the gray folders are organized, or issues regarding notification to victim services. I saw the training DVD that a couple of the parole commissioners worked to educate our ORCs and the staff that worked to prepare your folders. It was clear to me you put a lot of time and effort into it. And it's well worth it, because once you make a DVD of your training, that's it. And you're satisfied with it. That's what we use. That can go to all of our different institutions and help educate everybody to what you need. So I do appreciate the job you do. I wish the public had a better understanding and appreciation. It's a tough job. You don't often get the credit for all the success stories that are out there, but you should. get those credits for helping, making the tough decisions. There are people that have been released because of you. They're now tax-paying, law-abiding citizens. And more importantly, their voices can help prevent future crimes. I think when they go back to some of their neighborhoods and there are young offenders that are making or about to make the same mistakes that they made, it's their voices that can be, in effect, the hand on the shoulder to say, you don't want to pick up that gun. You don't want to sell drugs. You don't want to run with gangs. Because that's the path that will lead you to Attica and a 25 to life sentence, or to Clinton, or to Great Meadow. And I think that is something we can all do better at, to get the message out and prevent future crimes from happening. Not just deal with the offenders that are committed to our custody, but try and do more outreach efforts. We have youth assistance programs where at-risk individuals in the communities come to our facilities and have the offenders talk to them, not as a scared straight model. We know that doesn't work, but talk to them honestly as, I was you. I look at you, I see myself at that young age, and I'm advising you not to make the same mistakes that I made. So I think those kinds of outreach efforts are good. The challenge is we can't bring every at-risk youth into our facilities, so we have to find ways of getting the message out into the communities, and we have a couple of creative ideas on that. So again, I look forward to continuing to work with Tina. I'm very, very happy that she has accepted the role as chairperson of the Board of Parole. I first met her in the Governor Spitzer regime. She and I both were part of the commission, Sentencing Commission, and she's a person I've known of complete integrity and honesty and understanding, and she brings a lot to the position, and I think you all agree that she's a terrific chairperson to help guide your work, and I look forward to continue to working with her in her role until I retire. And with that, again, thank you for having me, and I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. Now I'd like to go around the table again so that you can get to know some of our backgrounds as well.
Sure, make me follow that introduction.
No, you got something to say.
I am Mark Parole. I've been on the board just a little over 2 years now. Prior to being a member of the board, I was a special assistant to the chair for 5 years. Worked in many aspects of parole. Fortunately, when I started, the chair wanted me to learn as much as I could about the function of parole, whether it be reentry, or home visits, warrants, or anything that went on, interviews, the violation process. So I was exposed to a lot prior to getting on the board, which I think has helped me serve in my current position. Prior to that, I was in the New York State Legislature. I was a senator for Buffalo. Prior to that, I was a councilman, majority leader in the Buffalo City Council. And just immediately prior to that, I was in the sheriff's department for a very, very, very short period of time. I served under Sheriff Galvin at the time, now Senator Galvin. He and I had a discussion. I had an opportunity to run for office, and we both agreed that I wasn't meant to be a deputy. So I resigned my position there. I was only in for actually a couple of weeks at the academy when the opportunity presented itself. So that was my first exposure to the criminal justice system. And I worked in many different capacities as a legislator. I've actually written some laws that have been adopted at the local level, and then some at the state level, and some I would say that I wish I had more experience when I authored them, because it caught on, and particularly with residents of sex offenders. And a lot of the local laws around the state were adopted after my law and the health law. However, I wish they would have tailored it a little bit better, because I think that we could have safer streets when it comes to sex offenders. And I'm talking about specifics that we can talk about some other time, but laws of that nature that I think that are important, and making sure the right people are where they're supposed to be, and making sure that people who need to be back in the community can actually be.
Thank you.
I'd vote for him. My name is Bill Smith. I've been on the parole board for my 18th year now. prior to that, I was senior investigator for the State Crime Victims Board. And in the 18 years you talked about the changing landscape, there's been a large number of changes, many improvements, and been involved in everything from video teleconferencing back in the days. I think I've been to every single prison throughout the state, so there's been a lot of changes for that, changes with work release, changes with sentencing,
Yes.
Which certainly is challenging mathematically.
Yes, it is.
And my background is accounting, so it really, it's been an interesting time. It's been a challenge. It's been, as you say, a great number of prisons that are closed. Fortunately, New York State has undergone a number of changes and allowed us to produce. The reality is, it would be great if we had, cut our prisons in half right now, but obviously we try to get to the point where we're right-sized. I was around when the SHU 200s, when that process went through. So I've worked with a number of board members, probably well over 50, and so I've learned a number of things from them and really enjoy it. And hopefully, when my term runs out and I retire, I'll be the longest serving board member ever in the state. So a couple more years.
All right, go for the record.
I'm definitely not going for the record. My name is Ellen Alexander, and I think I told the chair on the way here that I think we met about 20-something years ago. Because I was a legal counsel at the state of Rhode Island. I spent 7 years in private practice, worked at the AG in Rhode Island, and then I spent 18 years at the Rhode Island Department of Corrections, 5 years in the legal office, and then 12 years, 13 years, having a position similar to yours. I was considered the number 2 in the agency, but we're a postage stamp compared to New York. I think I met more murderers my first week on the board than were actually in the Rhode Island prison. I think I learned that I should have treated the parole board nicer when I was in that position in Rhode Island. I didn't really understand how important they were. And I've learned a lot my last 2.5 years. I'm glad to be returned to my state, my home state.
Great.
And I've really enjoyed doing retail work, as you call it, as opposed to system-wide work. It's nice to apply everything I learned, but deal with people one-on-one and see what happens. So thank you for coming today and taking time out of your busy schedule. I appreciate it.
I'm going to check my memory here. Did you once tell me a story where you went to law school with one of my old attorneys, Tom Getz?
Yes.
So
I was his freshman in
okay, I remember that story.
That's amazing. I can't remember what you spoke on, but I'm sure it was really good. And we were all in flow. I apologize if my memory is not as good as yours.
For those of you who don't know, Tom Getz is a wonderful attorney. He's now an associate counsel, but he's one of these harried individuals who can worry excessively about things. And so the practical joke you told me was that there was some kind of a constitutional question hidden in the essay or something, or coming.
Yeah, we were cruel to him our freshman year. You all took, for your attorneys, you took your writing class, and we told him that in our fact pattern there was a Marbury v. Madison issue. And this was before computers, because I am that old, and he had to go through the shepherds and shepherdize everything because he wanted to make sure he didn't miss that issue. So the poor guy used to carry Pepto-Bismol wherever he went. And it's great that I've run into him
Really?
and Doc stuff now, and he seems much more zen.
No, well, I think that's the cause of his problems. His neurosis started with that Marbury versus Madison question.
As I ask all the people who come to interview, I was a follower. I wasn't the leader.
I'm Christina Hernandez. I have been on the board for a little over 8 years, and prior to that I spent 11 years as a commissioner on the New York State Crime Victims Board. I was in the Albany office. In addition, I spent 7 years on the Commission for Judicial Conduct. I was appointed to that for 7 years, and I had to give that up, unfortunately, when I came here. I couldn't serve on both panels, but I enjoyed that experience as well. It gave me a very interesting perspective on the judicial system. I am a social worker. I'm a graduate of the school, SUNY administration, or SUNY school system, and I am very proud to be a social worker. I've used a lot of what I learned in the school and in the field in the job that I do today, and it's very gratifying and satisfying. And we had a conversation before we came in, very challenging, and people are not always happy, and quite frankly, you have to deal with the balance of things. So we do the best we can here. I am also a New York City native. I grew up in the projects in Manhattan on the West Side. It was always fun to tell people I grew up across the street from Lincoln Center, but it was the Amsterdam houses, and I'm a proud product and success story from there. So thank you for coming today also, because I was wondering why we hadn't seen you. And so I'm glad that we have, and appreciate everything that you said today, and we're all very interested in being a team and working on, and very interested in reentry, and I have met with different reentry programs. Some of us have, and quite frankly, it is what it is, and we do the best we can, and that's all I can say about the job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to skip ahead to Commissioner Kringle and come back around to me.
I'm from Buffalo. My name's Joe Kringle. I've been on the board for a little over 6 years. Just got reappointed this past summer. I started out, I went to CUNY Law School, and then became a probation officer, and then went on to Buffalo City Court for 8 years. I worked at domestic violence court. I worked for several judges, and it's a specialized court that I help run. So, thanks again for being here.
Sure.
James Ferguson from the New York City office. Started out similarly to Mark, where I had a brief stint in the New York City Police Department, and then decided to continue my education. Went on to law school. I started out at the Bronx DA's office and worked narcotics and then major case. I then, through people I met in Parole, jumped over to Parole for an administrative law judge job out at scenic Rikers Island. And then the opportunity came up for commissioner. I'm in my 10th year. Bill is the next one up, senior to me, so I'm waiting to push him out of that spot. Since my time on the board, I've also been teaching for about 18 years, various different colleges, including Jumpstart program, reaching out to inner city youth. And then about 5 years or so ago, I started a CLE program to go out to talk to attorneys, counsel, and even some police departments about how parole functions, because I know when I was a prosecutor, it was a complete mystery to me. And the only thing that I really knew about parole, and this is back in the 90s, was that they were in the paper every day for a parolee hurting somebody. So the initial impression of parole through the hearsay was extremely negative. And then coming on board with the agency, I've obviously learned something much different. There's a lot of great people here. I know I'm happy, and I believe the entire board is happy that our new chair, she's doing a great job in terms of pulling us together and utilizing the experience and the resources we have, which unfortunately in the past has been something that really was not fully done. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad that you came to see us today. Thank you.
Wow, and you get to be as mature as me, and I have to say geez. Okay, I started out in healthcare. Never thought that I would have anything to do with law school or with anything else. Ultimately, I went to law school in Buffalo and joined the Attorney General's office in Buffalo, and that's where I was first introduced to docs. In Buffalo, the AGs have an extremely large inmate litigation caseload, and that was my unit. So I worked with that and parole. And from there, I actually came over to Docs, and that's where I had an opportunity to meet. At that time, you were counsel at Docs, and I became a Docs Commissioner's Hearing Officer, and was fortunate enough again to get involved with the Inmate Litigation Reform Act. That's what made video conferencing, made that an appearance. A video conference appearance became legal then. Before that, it wasn't. So who would have thought I would come back and see video conferencing being used now in parole, and actually using it myself. So that's something. I left Docs and went on to OCFS, and was head of the New York office, at New York region, actually, there. And then subsequently I went to the city, and I'm back home. I don't know how else to say it, but in parole, in a different role, but so many other pieces have come together, and it's incredible. So, yeah.
Well, I'm originally from Western New York, from Buffalo, East Side, product of a pretty modest middle-class background. Our community changed as I aged. But then I went away to college, Fordham University in the Bronx, followed by University of Buffalo Law School, and then joined the Erie County DA's office. It was really my first real job, and I served under 2 district attorneys between 1993 and 2007, and worked just about every kind of job you could have as an assistant DA, from handling cases vertically in justice court up through city court in Buffalo, which was our biggest court out of that office, and grand jury, and then felony trials, and then specialized in sexual assault and domestic violence cases, before then turning to appeals and doing appeals work on behalf of Erie County, before coming in 2007 to State Service, which at that time the name of the agency was the Crime Victims Board. Became the chair of that for 6 years, and then became the director in my 7th year with that agency as it became the Office of Victim Services, and then came here as chair of the Parole Board just a little over a year ago. And so I'm pleased that I've had the opportunity in my career to touch just about every aspect of the criminal justice system in an active way, and to appreciate all of its moving parts. And it's truly my pleasure to serve with this group, and I'm really happy to have been able to use you as the excuse to be able to publicly talk about the expertise that this board comprises. We really do bring a lot of experience and sensitivity and intelligence to each and every one of our decisions, and we work collaboratively in panels of 2 or 3 every week to make sure that we're using our best judgment and our best care in making these very important decisions. So I'm happy to be here now and to try to continue to move our work forward in collaboration with Docs, because we can do more together than we can do separated. And we depend very heavily on your system to make sure that, as you say, we have exactly what we need to do our jobs well. And that partnership has been working wonderfully, in my opinion, since I've been here, certainly, at least. So with that having been said, I would like to give the opportunity for our counsel to introduce himself also, and just talk a little bit about his breadth of experience, because he's one of these long-timers too.
Good morning, everyone, again. Since we all started off where we started off from, I, like the commissioner, had the benefit of, upon completion of law school, with a short stint at my father's law firm here in Albany, getting a job working for a U.S. District Court judge, who, by virtue of his senior status, up here in the Northern District of New York, said, I will take on all the prisoner litigation for the most part, while the other district court judges who are situated in Syracuse and would travel to Utica and up to Watertown, they can handle the other active matters on the docket. So Judge Foley had a very, very robust calendar of what was that, and that, mind you, this is 1983, of inmate litigation. And I think it's fair to say, Commissioner, that in the early 80s, when Monroe versus Papers decided the hands-off doctrine was over, the Second Circuit and other circuit courts around the United States, it opened up. And with a number of state prisons in New York State, the litigation was phenomenal. So I learned about the state prison system there for the first time in the context of civil rights litigation and federal habeas corpus right. And then having the opportunity to go on for another 8.5 years, just about 9 years, in the Albany litigation bureau, doing what Gail was doing, civil rights litigation, now representing corrections officers, representing everyone from then Thomas Coughlin right on down. And I worked with the commissioner on litigation and got to know stuff going on there. And then in 1988, I came to the, 1996, I came to the then Division of Parole, and in December of 96 was made counsel. And I served in that capacity ever since, and we have seen a number of changes. We have seen, it's amazing what has happened in New York. And you're right, we went from litigation over triple bunking and expanding and all that to now a situation where we have, I think, a very manageable population. We've right-sized, I remember right-sizing who's going in and then working with the commissioner on right-sizing on the back end. That's how we got our merit termination of sentence, mandatory termination of sentence, 3-year discharge provisions were expanded so the board could now again consider people who are serving life sentences for other than Article 220 offenses, and people who are serving homicide offenses for a 3-year possible discharge. You know, as that got reevaluated, and we've gotten very smart over the years, I believe. And the one thing that I think, and you've said this at the hub superintendent meetings, is that even though we merged 2 years ago, or rather in 2011, it seems like such a long time ago. It's really very nascent. We're still experiencing a lot. And I've often said, when I've spoken to you all collectively or individually, we still need to be patient as we move forward. And Commissioner, I can't thank you enough for doing what you're doing, and you as well, Chief. Because it is very different to bring these two agencies together and take from the best of both, and get rid of what wasn't really working. And your patience is great, and you're doing a great job, and you're doing a great job. Keep moving us in that direction, because it is a big change, and it's been quite an honor to be a part of it. To see it come to this point, it's been great. So that's my story. Nothing stays the same, George.
Thank you. And I think that's for the best.
Great.
You want to stay? You're good for a little while?
Yeah, I'm good for a little
Okay.
while.
All right. Let's move then quickly through our old business and new business, please. I don't believe there's any updates that I'm aware of, and Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Ferguson, I don't think that we've heard anything new on the OCFS video project.
Awaiting the final video.
And nothing, although I will be going to McCormick September 18th, along with Commissioner Alexander, so we'll probably try to make sure we have an update at that point.
Okay, thank you. And you spoke to the next point on the agenda, which is the sole tour that we have scheduled presently is the September 18th tour of McCormick that Commissioners William Smith and Ellen Alexander will go on. How many of us haven't had a chance to tour an OCFS facility during your tenure at all?
I have been to an OCFS facility, but as a speaker. I have not. So, and I have had that tour, but I have not gone to the.
Okay. Anybody else?
I've been to, but not toured.
Okay. So we can reach out if you like for other dates and other possible tours of other facilities. I think McCormick was selected in this instance for geographic reasons, but wherever they have facilities, I think they're willing to host tours, and it is helpful for us to see the residents in their environment and get some sense of the programming that they have and the staff that they're working with. I think it's helpful when we meet them during board interviews. So I encourage that. An update in terms of the training. I believe we completed our last scheduled training just recently, if you want to speak briefly about that.
Yes, we had our last training, and several commissioners came in to attend us. and watch, which was great, and then help afterwards with all the questions, which thank you for coming. The DVD's been finalized. I know it was sent to the chair a while back for approval, and it's my understanding it's already started dissemination. So hopefully, and the game plan has been, is that after training all of the DEPs and the SORCs, that we have this final product that now will go out, and all of our ORCs will have a resource that is accessible to them to help improve the way the reports are done and the information is conveyed, and help us do good hearings.
Great.
Chair, I just want to add, if any of the commissioners haven't seen it, I want to thank you and Commissioner Elovich for taking the time and the energy to put it together, because as I stated in an email to you, I mean, to hear about it is one thing, but to actually see what you did and how you did it, it was awesome to see, and I was really happy to be able to be there. So
I'll send you an autographed copy.
Please. Actually, you know, it was really helpful, and it was great to get all the input from the staff that was there.
Yes.
And, and hopefully, it's going to help put things into perspective for the staff as well as we continue with the integration process and people doing things they're not familiar with. Because as Acting Commissioner Nucci pointed out, we rely on them very heavily for the information that we need to make informed decisions and decisions on safety. So, thank you.
You're welcome. And I would add one thing that I know the chair sent an email out the other day, as we've had some more success in terms of our cooperation. There's going to be a new form that's going to become standard in the folder. It'll be a checklist. And so this way, each SORC and each commissioner can open a folder and look at that checklist without having to search through 200 pieces of paper to find out if everything we need is in there at a glance. So you'll open a folder and you'll see if the folder is ready or not right from the get-go. And it'll, of course, will help us, so we don't start a hearing and then realize something we thought we had we don't have. But it also helped the DEPs and the SORCs in terms of supervision, is they'll be able to tell right off the bat if the additional work needs to be done by the ORC. So another step in the right direction to try to pull all this together and make it work efficiently and effectively.
There is one thing I wanted to say. I attended that training, and I think I told you I was very pleased with Punch. It was really good. More than just the training itself, it was a time when the board was reaching out to the other part of the agency, and it meant so much to those people in the room. People came up to me afterwards. I've seen people, I've bumped into people, and they were asking questions. Of course, I didn't have any answers, but that leads to the question I want to put here. When people have questions or suggestions, and people do, where do you direct them, and how do they get this? Because we're still growing, and we're still making it right. So, you know, they don't have a place yet.
Let me suggest, just in terms of a beginning protocol, every facility has a deputy superintendent for programs. They all report to Assistant Commissioner for Program Services, McCoy. If they work up their chain of command, then that's the best way to make sure that everybody in that chain of command is also educated at the same time, and that there's sort of a universal policy that's practiced at every facility, so that you don't have a one way of doing it that may be the model way in one facility and not in others. So that if they have questions about process that aren't answered by either the video itself or the training packet, which is also excellent, that was produced, then they can work those up the chain of command. Their SORC, their Deputy Superintendent for Programs, all the way up to the Assistant Commissioner if necessary, and then back through Acting Commissioner Nucci and me if it needs more follow-up from the board.
Okay. So, well, I'm assuming somebody will pass that message on also to them, so they know
Absolutely.
it's okay to do that, and the DEPs know that that's the process to work.
Would you agree that
Oh,
sounds
absolutely.
like a reasonable
I'll try and make sure that
Just-
that message gets out with one slight correction. Jeff is a deputy commissioner.
I'm sorry,
I think he's
Deputy
demoted.
Commissioner. I'm sorry, you're right, Deputy
Yeah.
Commissioner.
Chair, one thing
Okay.
I would add to
Great.
that, which I
Yeah.
think is a really great point, is lately, I've been happy to see it, a lot more deputy commissioners coming to the boards,
Yes.
and not just coming to observe, and
But-
some will come and observe for a period of time and leave, but actually hands-on participating. I think it's so important, and this is why Commissioner Elovich and I initially came up with this. We saw that the ORCs and the SORCs were literally pulling their hair out. And we wanted to make their job easier, and of course, we must make good decisions, and we can only do that with good information. So that's why we reached out with the training. I think if the DEPs come, they'll understand the importance of going back to things like we had established under when we had the FPOs. 2 weeks before board, all the work should be done. People are literally doing all-nighters the night before board, and the importance of some of the decisions is just too grave to leave things go to the last minute. And I think if the DEPs go, as we've seen lately, and I don't know if my fellow commissioners have had the same experience, but I've seen a lot more DEPs coming in and actually engaging and being hands-on in the running of the board, which is great. And I think that'll help out facilitating pulling everything together with the SORCs and the ORCs.
Yeah, but Tina did invite the entire executive staff when they can make time to go see these interviews in person, and I think it is an excellent opportunity, an excellent learning experience. It's on my list of things to hopefully get to in the not too distant future. I'd like to see them myself, because there's nothing like first-hand observation to really get a feel for what the dynamics are, how it plays out, and where we can make things better, because I'm always about trying to make things better for everybody. So
Great.
I will take up the chairwoman's invitation as soon as I can.
Thank you for correcting that. I work very closely with Deputy Commissioner McCoy, and he's very appreciated in his proper title and function. So thank you for that.
Can I just add something quickly? I think sometimes it gets lost in the very important decisions that are made, whether it's a hold, whatever amount of time, or a release, and all that information in the folder, whether it's impact statements, or whatever it may be. But the other thing that has been frustrating for all of us too is that even when there are technical errors, and by statute we have to postpone the case, the amount of money that it costs, time, resources, energy to postpone the case. So now you have double the amount of work. That guy's got to come back, the lady has to come back to the court again. Staff has to work on that when they could have been working on other cases. Their programs, schedules may be interrupted. Fairness to the inmate, there's a lot of times that the inmate, for any number of reasons, it postponed once or twice. Now the court, person, if you will, has passed their parole eligibility date, and we're postponing for a technical error. We thought we had this letter, we don't have this, there's a mistake here, and by law we have to make sure it's correct. So even just on, the training is so important, obviously, because the decision-making process is really awesome. But simply to have less postponements because of those errors, I think saves the state a lot of money. And it also does the right thing, because those people who we put through the process, through the programs, the way that the legislature and the governor's office and everybody involved wanted it to go, now we're postponing it because there was a piece of paper missing. And that's unfair to, I think, everybody. So just the amount of work, resources, and money saved, and having less postponements, I think would be if it was ever tracked, it would be very tangible at the end of the year to see how much, with 20% postponements, now it's down to 3%. How much have we saved? And that's bed space, and that's program space for people who really need to get in there. And at the end of the day, there's no room. Then a guy comes to us, he hasn't been in the program because he couldn't get in the program, and then who knows, you might find out that 3 people in that program, they're still there because they were postponed and they might have been on the way home. So I just think that there really needs to be emphasized, that this is not just about because we want to make the right decision, which is most important, but also, efficiency. And I know that part of your job is not only, we have so many facets of our job, but security, programs, being efficient. If we have to do this, how can we do it efficiently and not cost more money than we need to on a daily basis? And simple postponements, I think, cost us a lot of money.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. It really is a very important consideration. Avoid unnecessary postponements. Above all else, as I said often, a system has to be fundamentally fair. The inmates, offenders have to believe it's fair. The rules work for them, and we don't want an inmate to suffer any negative consequence through something that's beyond his control, a bureaucratic mistake. Whether it's he needs a program, but if he couldn't get to the program because we didn't offer it to him, then our policy is he doesn't lose good time for that. He will if he's offered the program and refuses, it's in a program need. The same thing should apply with any parole appearances. He's entitled to his timely parole hearing. If he would otherwise get released, but instead the hearing decision is postponed, that's a fault of the system, not his. But he unfortunately pays the consequence, as does taxpayers and all the others. So for all of those reasons, but above all else, to be fair to the offended population, I want to avoid unnecessary postponements. Any attention to detail, any correction that we can make to bring us closer to that goal, I certainly fully support.
And I don't want to just keep dumping on you either, but to tail, on what Commissioner Ferguson said, the human toll, because now we're talking about the ORCs, who are now doing a new job, and so for some people they're trying their best, they're doing a great job, but I agree with Commissioner Ferguson, no one should be working into the middle of the night on the day before parole board.
Right.
And the other thing we have been trying to do in different areas around the state is some of the facilities if they're not waiting to the very last minute to get this work done, they can get the folders to the video location, and then the parole board can read them the day before. So it helps us also in what we have to do. If we can spend more time with the folder. But I agree with Commissioner Ferguson. I have seen some staff who are up all night, and you're paying the overtime, and I'm concerned about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Because that contributes to errors as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to continue. We're going to continue to work together collaboratively on training, joint training, any kind of simple fixes like the checklist that help everybody to know where we're at, and hopefully continue going the right direction, prepping our files. Board training. I sent an email yesterday to your new director of training, Mr. Leroy Fields, who came to our meeting 2 meetings ago, and everyone who was here had an opportunity to meet him about some upcoming board training. I'm including and asking for his assistance because I think that we can get their assistance in packaging it also, maybe videotaping the training, providing more technical assistance in terms of being able to use the internet to offer the training to us in different locations. So I'm envisioning a board training day in September, perhaps, where you can be in your home offices and we can be video conferencing and using technology to have the PowerPoint available to all of us in our various locations, as opposed to bringing us all together at cost to the state for the trainings that we need. And we've identified the sex offender conditions as a training and the board actions as a training. So I'm asking for his help and collaboration on that, working also with Tom Herzog, Mary Osborne, who's the director of the Sex Offender Management Unit, for those 2 particular trainings. We're also going to be bringing in the expertise of our counsel and Steve Philbrick, who is, what's his proper title, Terry?
Steve's proper title is also Associate Counsel.
Associate Counsel. He works more directly with our Bureau of Adjudication to prepare the board action training. So that will be upcoming. I'll share information about potential dates as we get them and as that training is developed. New business, post-board reports. I just want to ask you all, when you send your post-board reports, make sure to copy Talissa Freeman Ruffin. She's packaging them all now. We get 4 a week. She's packaging them all up now, ideally on Fridays of each week, so we can share our post-board reports with Deputy Commissioner McCoy, so that we can make sure that we're highlighting the issues that are important to us that we need program services to help us with. And we get some post-board reports from facilities, but it's not yet to the point where we're getting them from all facilities, so that we can compare notes in that regard. We're about to release to the governor our annual report on medical parole. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it yet. We just recently started reviewing it, Terry Tracy and I, and it's very informative. It highlights the fact that the program is working, which is very good news. It will hopefully be public within a few weeks, but it is highlighting the fact that the program is working, that medical parole is working in New York State. And just one statistic I wanted to share with everybody, because what it does is it goes the data goes from the program's inception from June 2002 to December 31st, 2013. And the one statistic that stood out to me was as follows. From June 1992 to December 2013, 354 of the 389, 91% of the medical parole applicants who appeared before the board were granted medical parole. I don't know if we knew that. So that's helpful information for us to know, and for our governor to know. So that's about to be released, and when it is public, I'll make sure. And once it's gone through all its level of review, I'll make sure everybody else here has a copy of it as well. Okay? And November boards. Now, I think at the last meeting we discussed not wanting to change anything for the holiday week, which is Veterans Week, but there was also some discussion about Election Day. And I couldn't find, and that's another thing we have to go back and do our minutes, but I couldn't find in last month's minutes where we actually said or indicated that that was a preference among the group. I did reach out to Joseph Bellner, who's head of security, Deputy Commissioner for Security for DOCS, as well as Deputy Commissioner McCoy, who does our program services piece with our boards, to see if they knew of any reason why we couldn't push our boards back on election week to Wednesday, Thursday, and they didn't have any issues or concerns with that. So if it's the will and desire of the group, as we're presently constituted today, that we make election week a week in which we start our boards Wednesday and go into Thursday, then I don't think there's any issue with that. So if anybody wants to make a motion, or if you want any more discussion about it, we can talk about it.
I would so move that we change the boards during election week to Wednesday and Thursday so that we can all exercise our duties.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion or questions? Okay.
I do have a question. Is this just for this year, or are we going to do this every year?
Well, we might need to take it up.
We could take it up this year. Well, I'm not going to be here this year, so it's not going to impact me.
I would move that we make it a permanent change, and of course, if something disastrous happens this year that makes us realize it's not working, then I guess we can always go back to filing our absentee ballots. I would move that this is a new policy that we impose.
Historically, I don't think we've done it. In the past, I know, you can obviously vote by mail, but whenever the group wants is
Okay.
fine.
So do you want to amend your motion, or you want to leave your motion as is?
I would amend that we make it a permanent change to, of course, be revisited if necessary.
All right. Is that okay? You still okay with the second of that?
I'll change it if it doesn't work.
Okay. All in favor of amending our schedule during election week to Wednesday, Thursday, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Are there any nays? Okay. And any abstentions?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, so we have one nay from Commissioner William Smith and an abstention by Commissioner Hernandez.
I'll abstain.
Two abstentions.
Two abstentions.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you, and that motion is carried. So that will be the schedule, and I'll so notify DOCS for this week, for this year. All right. Correspondence, announcements, and invitations. We have a retirement to announce. Tony Companion, who was one of our executive assistants in 2013, is retiring to sunny Florida, and his party and the invitation flyer, I believe, went out to everyone by email. I have a copy of it here if you'd like to see it. His retirement event will be Tuesday, September 23rd, and unfortunately it's a working night for us. Many of us will be on the road, but I did want to make you aware of it. We did give him a nice plaque during his last month of service with the board, but certainly we'll send him some congratulating remarks for his retirement, because I think I'll be on the road actually that week as well. So
I am planning to go.
So we will have hopefully a representative from the board who can take take any card or whatever good wishes we wish to give him on his retirement, but I wanted to announce that. And then the other item, we've invited a special guest to be with us here today because she was loaned to us from DOC's Reentry Services. And when I first came to the board, Commissioner Nucci, she was sitting with Jessica Hamlin and helping us to navigate the numerous board actions, 3-year discharges, and all kinds of correspondence and activities that come into the board central office every day. And then as community supervision, it has been restructured. She's been reclaimed to her home office, but we certainly appreciated her while we had her. And so Lisa Connolly, could you please come forward? We didn't get to do this before she left, but we've had this for a while now. I would like to present to you a plaque on behalf of the Board of Parole. It's got the logo of the former State Division of Parole, as well as the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision logos and the Excelsior logo. And I'll just read it. Presented to Lisa Connolly in recognition of your professionalism and dedication to the New York State Parole Board, March 2014. So that must have been the month that you were reclaimed to your former service. So I wanted to thank you very much. Yeah. The month before, we shared a letter that an inmate had written you that just gave food for thought. Right. And so I'm going to make it a standing practice now at all of our meetings to share information that comes across my desk that I think might be helpful to you. And so I'm sharing with you an article that I discovered on corrections.com regarding parole decisions. And you can review it at your leisure. And I'm also sharing a report that was prepared by the Osborne Association on the high cost of low risk, the crisis of America's aging prison population. And you've also been given the schedule that goes, I believe, through March of 2015, having to do with our availability or unavailability to conduct boards. I want you to check it to make sure that it reflects what you've actually indicated to me that you need in terms of unavailability between now and March of 2015, give you an idea of others' unavailability so that you can plan accordingly, and ask that you let me know as soon as possible if there's any changes that need to be made to this or that you would request be made to this schedule so that we can produce a new schedule and disseminate it amongst everybody, okay? Because that helps us in planning our boards going forward. So if you would give some attention to that over the next couple days and send in your corrections or requests, I'd appreciate it. And with that, is there any other new business that anybody wants to discuss in the public portion of our meeting? Okay, if not, then can I have a motion to adjourn the public portion of the meeting and go into executive session, and after the conclusion of executive session, adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion. We adjourn.
I'm sorry. Oh. Thank you. I almost forgot. I forgot originally, and now about to end. Has everyone had a chance to see the minutes of last month? Are there any corrections that anyone would like to make on the record? Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Okay, Commissioner Ferguson moves. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Alexander. If there's no further questions or discussion, all in favor of approving the minutes from the July 17th, 2014 meeting as presented, please say aye. Aye. Are there any nays? Any abstentions? That's correct. So there's one abstention, and the motion is carried. Thank you. And now, the motion has been made to
Adjourn the meeting.
and seconded by Commissioner Alexander. And there's no nays and abstention. I assume that motion is also carried, correct? Thank you all.
Thank
Going
you.
into executive session.
Okay.